Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining us today. My name is Barrett Louie, part of the marketing team here at RiskIQ. Today, we'll explore which Black Friday mobile applications to avoid by diving into each application and showing why bad apps are back with a vengeance and what retailers they are targeting. Before we get started, there are a couple housekeeping notes. First, today's workshop is being recorded. Second, today's session will be interactive. Throughout the workshop, we'll be unmuting lines for questions and conversation. If you have any questions while your line is muted, please send them through the questions window in the GoToWebinar control panel. We'll answer as many as we can as we go. Now, let me introduce you to today's host, Benjamin Powell. Benjamin is RiskIQ's Director of Technical Marketing and will be walking you through our research as well as hands-on exercises today. And with that, I'll hand it over to Benjamin.
Hi everyone, welcome to our threat hunting workshop Black Friday sales edition. I wanted to do this so you can be prepared because everyone's buying stuff online, and I want to make sure that your shopping experience isn't skimmed and your data or credit cards will be stolen, or debit cards. So if you have any problems with the video or the audio, sometimes it's best just to exit and come back in. And that usually will reset whatever the problem is, just to be aware of that. One thing that I also want to tell you about is we have a promo code. So every time we do a workshop, we give out a 1-week promo code that gives you full access to everything in the system, just like a full paid account. So you can kick the tires. So if you went through and already did a trial for 30 days, you can still use the product fully for the week and be able to use it. Now, one thing, I'm going to be asking for some volunteers to walk through and do the investigation with me to make it a little more interactive. If you do that, I'll give you a 30-day promo code. So if you're in an active trial, I'll give you an extended one so you can go for 60 days. So I want to make sure that you really ask questions. This is not a recording, and we go through and we do this. So today what we're going to be doing is looking at some websites that are doing some skimming, that are going through and stealing stuff. We're going to look at some mobile apps. So I'm going to show you some, we did some research on some Black Friday apps and sites, and we're going to go through and look at some of the ones that we found. And then I'll open it up to the audience that you can tell me an application, and we can take a look and see if there's anybody that's infringing upon that or do anything bad. We have over 30 million mobile apps in our database, and we'll go through and we can take a look at those. And then we also have been tracking newly observed domains, and I'll give you the website that talks about it, and you can even download this data and look at it, where we're looking at Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Christmas sale type stuff, holiday sales, to show what we see and how it works. So like in my house, I have a next generation firewall where if it's a newly observed domain, I don't allow my family to touch that site for at least 14 days. And so a lot of organizations have that, but most of the bad activity that you see with domains will usually come from something that was newly observed. So we'll examine some of those and take a look. When I looked yesterday at the big list of stuff, couldn't find anything that was really bad so far. Some of these sites, when they're purchased, they're not set up right away. So we might find something, but we'll go through and check that out. So let me go to the next slide. So inside of PassiveTotal, we have basically 4 different types of credentials and accounts that 4 different types of accounts that we use. One of them is we call the community account, and that's if you have a free email account like a Gmail or a Yahoo type of email account, and you sign up for a PassiveTotal community account, we're only going to give you 14 days of results, and we're not going to give you all the data sets. We actually hold back the services. We want to make sure that you are really a security professional, and if you use a corporate email address, we call you a security professional. And with that, we will give you an additional data set so you know what ports and banners are open. And we give you 90 days of search results, so you can see a lot more information to do your investigation. Now, if you are in a trial or an enterprise account, we have some additional data sets that RiskIQ has that no one else has. Because we go out there and we gather the data ourselves, we're able to link and put this information together to create some data sets like trackers, the little bits of code that look at user experience. We know about all the components, what's installed and running on all the websites. The host pairs, this is the relationship. We actually look at 16,000 different things that for host pairs, things coming out and coming in and going out of websites, and we can show that. Cookies, so these are the cookies that are used to track people, and we already talked about the services. So if you sign up for an account today, please make sure that you're using a corporate email account, and the reason for that is you'll see more data and you'll be able to experience more of the product after your trial is over. When you start the trial, you have full access to everything. So for example, if we did a search for something in PassiveTotal and we were using the free account, you'll notice that you might have searched on IP and you'll see a domain, the current whois record, a cert, and some open source intelligence. If I search that exact same thing using the corporate email account, because I have more history, I can see more of the infrastructure chained together, and I can get a little bit more information. And if I use the enterprise account, you have all the history going back to when we started collecting on it, and we've been around for over 10 years. So sometimes we have over 10 years worth of data linking these the infrastructure together. So think of the RiskIQ information as a map of the internet, like a street map. And with that, we know that from a single piece, all the relationships it built together. So when we look at the different data sets that are available, the traditional data sets that most threat investigators use are like whois, who's registered to that domain. If you log in with a free account, either the corporate or the free email account, you get the current record. But we generally have history going back to when that was first purchased. So if you have an enterprise account, you can see that history. The passive DNS is the IP address that responded for that domain. And we collect a lot, but we also can't be everywhere all the time. So we have partners as well where we get that information. We'll show that in the product, where that information came from. The certificate, most people think certificate is really not that important, but with GDPR, it's broken a lot of the whois records, and the certificate has facet information in there that you can use to find other domains and IP addresses that link it together like the whois records did. Subdomains, open source intelligence, hashes, services, and projects. The projects are either private or they're public projects, and that's like research, things that you're doing. The advanced data sets, and this is where we're going to spend a lot of our time today, because I want to show you how these are truly going to help you link things together that you might not have known that there was any relationship. But by looking at the trackers in the components, the host pairs, and the cookies, you get the full picture of the infrastructure. Now, the 14-day and 90-day history is pretty significant when you're doing an investigation, because we're not always told when an attack is actually happening. We might hear about it a few days later or a couple weeks later, and by the time we go to look at that information, we don't have all the pieces. But by having that big history, it gives you the ability to see connections that you normally wouldn't see. And with the full accounts that are paid accounts or in a trial, you see everything with all the unlimited amount of data available. So the advanced data sets are really important, because that's how you're going to infrastructure chain a lot of this data together. Now, we give out a 7-day promo code, but if you're in a trial, your trial is going to last 30 days. The promo code might not work for you, but if you do if you volunteer, I'm going to give you a 30-day promo that will go past your trial if you start a trial today. So don't worry about that. And that will allow you to really kick the tires. So if you haven't created an account yet, this is going to be a hands-on workshop where you're going to actually go through and look at stuff. And the things that we're going to look at this workshop are bad things. So I don't want you to go there directly. Everything that we're going to see is potentially malicious. and that could infect your machine or your organization or your household. So we want to use tools that will keep you separate from the threat actor. And so everything that we're going to be doing, it's a tool that goes out and gathers the data and stores it in their system, and we're going to be interfacing with that tool so that it's not coming into our systems. So go out and create your community account if you haven't done so already at community.riskiq.com/registration. You can use the promo code there, but if you already have an account and your trial's over and you want to extend it, you can go into the little person in the upper right-hand corner of PassiveTotal Community, and you can go into the account settings and you can add the promo code under profile. And the promo code is case sensitive. It's VRTHW-Black Friday. Put that in there, click off, and you'll see that your query count will go up to like 26,000. Now, in this same area is where you can adjust email frequency. A lot of people ask, we get that question a lot, so I added this to the slide. So if you want to get email notifications, yes or no, if you created a project and wanted to monitor something, for example, domains, and say every time a new IP shows up on this domain, alert me, this is where you would do those monitoring email frequency. And then the articles, we publish all the time new research. Or we take open source intelligence articles and add information to it. So if you want to be notified about that, you can say the email frequency that you would like in there, okay? So we're going to be using several tools today. So the belief that I have is I want to teach you how to find bad people. And I want to educate you to some of their techniques, and procedures that they do so you can find them more efficiently. If you can see it and you can train your eye to know something good or bad, then you're more likely to be able to help your organizations and protect them. So the tools that we're going to be using today, and I'm going to copy them and put them into the chat window in just a minute. We're going to be using RiskIQ PassiveTotal, and it's listed here. We're going to do the Google Safe Browsing check to verify if something's good or bad. And then we're going to use two other tools. One of them is URL Scan.io. The data that you're going to see in there, we have in our backend, but it's not readily available inside of PassiveTotal. So this will show you like a screenshot, show you some of the scripts that are being used, things like that. And then hybrid analysis, I like to use them because you can sandbox it and see if it's, for example, a bad phishing email. I can look at how it was communicating with other things. So sometimes when you see a domain, you don't know everything that executes when you clicked on that link. And this is a way to see those communication areas where you can go back and then add those to your investigation. So I'll give you a little background on myself. So I'm Benjamin Powell, the Director of Technical Marketing here at RiskIQ, certified ethical hacker. I've been doing IT for over 30 years, half of the time strictly in security, and probably the last 13 years working with startups. I've worked in state government, port districts, airport, biotech, financial services, manufacturing, and software development. One of my passions is I like to go out and spearfish. But you know, when we talk spearfishing to threat investigators, they think of me sending out emails to steal information. But no, I actually go out in the ocean and catch fish. And in my background, you can see some of my spear guns up on the wall. So I actually go out there and hunt fish in the ocean. Now, one thing I want to let you know is that I've created some content, and we have this out on our website. So if you go to riskiq.com/threat-hunting resources, you will see exercises. So there'll be like legit or not, looking at two domains that are similarly spelled, and you have to determine which one's good and which one's bad. And we record like a video walking through it, and you can actually do queries on them and actually see the data. So everything is real. Nothing has nothing's fake. So we have many different investigations out there to help you improve your capabilities of finding threats and detecting them, either starting from a known good or from a known bad and finding those threat actors. Also, there's 2 or 3 recordings that go through an entire threat investigation from open source intelligence. They're like 2.5 to 3 hours long, showing you how to really utilize RiskIQ, and those are out there. But one thing that's really important is everyone's perspective. When you're looking at a problem, you might be coming from a vuln management, a SOC, a threat hunter, a pen tester, from management. I want to run some poll questions so then when I go through these examples, I can show you the perspective that's meaningful to you and your organization and your job. So Barrett, can we kick off some questions to the group?
Absolutely, here they come.
So what area of the organization do you work for? Are you an incident responder, vulnerability management, SOC, or threat analyst? So please go through and answer those, and then while we go through and do the investigation, I can show you those aspects that are important to you. Okay, so incident responders, we have 17% of you in SOC. Vulnerability management, 0, and threat analysts, 67%. Now, one thing that's really important is that one thing that you might need to do as a incident responder in the SOC or threat analyst is that when you do your investigation, you might find a problem and say, hey, the reason why we were compromised is because of this version of software that was running, and we have it. So you need to go in and fix it. And I'll be able to verify if you fixed it or not, and I'll tell you when we're safe, but you need to go do that. So you might need to do that as part of your job. So one of the exercises we're going to do today, we're going to go through that. We're going to figure out what happened, and then it will give you enough information to go talk to those groups and give them the information they need to go fix it. Okay. Next question. Okay, do you currently use PassiveTotal? So I want to know what level of expertise you have. So if you're new to PassiveTotal, great, welcome. I'll explain things a lot more. If you're already a seasoned professional with it, then I'll keep it more high level and we'll go more into the techniques of things. Okay, so we're about almost half and half. So 53% yes and 47% no. Okay. Okay, what type of PassiveTotal account are you currently using? The free email, the corporate email, or the paid account? Okay, so corporate, about 60%, 20% free, and 20% paid. Now, if you're using a free account, and you've already done a lot of stuff inside of PassiveTotal, you can chat with us and let us know, hey, I want to create a corporate email and can you transfer some of my projects and stuff over? We can do that for you. So just bear that in mind, okay?
And here comes our last question.
Okay. Did you attend last week's workshop? Just want to know. 13% yes, 18% no. So, okay, good. Okay. So some of the investigations that we're going to do, I just want to know because it might tie into some stuff that we did last week. Okay. All right. So now what I'm going to do is since a lot of you are new to PassiveTotal, I'm going to explain like the data that we get, how we get it, why it's important. So think of it this way. Threat actors change the way that they do stuff all the time because when we find them, we publish, hey, we found them, and then they change their behavior so we can't find them. Well, the same is true for us collecting data. So when we go through and we collect information, you know, when we first started off, we had a data center. We go right out from the data center, start collecting the data. And then we publish something, and then they go, wow, the threat actor goes, he was coming from this IP range. What I'm going to do is go on all my stuff and filter out those ranges so you can't see me. And all of a sudden, the internet's clean. Can't find him anymore. So we have to do similarly what the threat actor does. So we actually come out, we crawl the entire IPv4 space, hit all the domains. When anything new gets purchased, we get notified and we start monitoring and seeing who it's registered to. There's an IP address if it's parked, if there's images on there, what's there, when it was first seen, when the last seen, all the components. We look at different ports. We source from different countries. So for example, a threat actor might say, I want to only look at this geographic region. So when somebody from this region comes out to the website, give them this code. If it's anybody else, give them this other code. So we actually have to come from different countries and from different types of IP space, because if I'm doing an attack on a mobile device, I might say, hey, I only want to target mobile IP addressing, or corporate IP addressing, or residential IP spacing, or a particular browser or operating system. So we actually have to act like the intended victim. So like I always say, your parents on the internet. We do these things to figure out what's there, and we interact with the internet like a real user. So we actually go out and gather the data through like a browser. We call it a virtual user. We can program it to go and do a search, go click on the link, have cookies, present them, keep session, act like a real user, scroll through, do a little bit, and then have another virtual user go in and grab some other information and take all that information back and piece it together. We pull down the full document object model. And when we do that, we're able to pull out a lot of information and create the data sets that are ours alone. It's not like we're buying feeds from somebody and putting that data together. Because we've gathered it ourselves, we know how everything's interconnected. So we look at over 228 unique ports and services, go over the entire IP space, IP4 space. We know when we saw it and when it changed. So we know the first and last date it was seen. We do over 2 billion web requests a day. We have terabytes of passive DNS, millions of components, certs, trackers, cookies. We're currently mapping over 157 billion relationships across the internet. So how does that help you? So we've trademarked this thing called infrastructure chaining. So from a single piece of malware, for example, when you look at it, you might have said, hey, that malware came from this IP address. Oh, that IP address has this cert on there. That cert's associated with this domain, and that domain has another IP address, another cert. There was a tracker associated with it in the domain, and we start building this information out and connecting the dots. So even if you don't have a lot of information to do the investigation internally, you will probably have enough information to do the investigation externally and find all the infrastructure that was involved with that attack. And we're going to go through that today. So we want to be to make you smarter and faster in finding threats, and with threat intelligence. So the threat intelligence that people use is gleaned from an investigation that somebody has done, and they publish about it. And when they do those publications, what we find out is when we talk to the community, we have over 100,000 community users now. When we talk to them, we go, okay, how are you using PassiveTotal? What are you doing? And a lot of them would say, hey, my boss came by and said, hey, here's an article that was just released. Can you take a look at this and see if we're affected by it? And they would go through and they take all the indicators that were in the article, and a lot of them are in pictures or in ways that you can't copy and paste, and they type them all into PassiveTotal. And they start doing their investigation to see all the infrastructure involved, because we can chain it together, and then they look to see if that affects them. So what RiskIQ did was we went, well, that's great, but we can make your life easier. So we launched the PassiveTotal Threat Portal. And what that did was take this open source intelligence articles, go through, pull out all the indicators that were in pictures or in ways that you would have to type them manually, and make them that with a single click you can click on it and then run a query and see that data. So immediately makes you more efficient, that you can see what's happening. And then that allows you to be smarter and faster. But then we said, let's take it to the next step. If you're an enterprise user, so you have a paid account or you're in a trial or using a promo code, we want you to have more information. We want you to hit the ground running. So when the boss comes up and says, here's the article, does it affect us? You don't have to run all that stuff and figure it out. We can take the information that was published and quickly say, we've already done the investigation for you. Our threat researchers and analysts have gone through and said, there's all this extra data here. And these are the RiskIQ indicators. So you start off with the community, the published open source intelligence, and RiskIQ will create additional things that we found and add them to the article. So immediately you start further down the path right away. So that's what we've done in the last couple months. We've released this, and we'll go through and we'll look at some of those today. So this gives you like the capability of going back in time and seeing this. So as this data comes in, as we go out and gather all this data, it comes in, we capture it, and it gets into our system. Okay. So when you think about threat intelligence and the circular way that things work, where you have to tell it what to look for, how to do it. So we're collecting all this data. It's coming in. We have our threat intelligence and security researchers. They figure out something. They see like a piece of data that is hidden inside of the document object model, or some relationship or some vulnerability that exists there. So what happens is they talk to the data scientists and say, hey, we want to find this at scale. And so they create the machine learning algorithm to take that data out or parse it or to go collect it and understand it. So that data now goes in and we get the WHOIS records, the passive DNS, the crawls index, the certificates, services, open source intelligence, the mobile apps, historic data, the trackers, the web components, the host pairs, and we have all that raw intelligence. Then we can create some lists and derive data. So we can say, these are all the 0-day things. Accomplice list is that somebody is hosting something that's bad. They're not bad, but they're hosting something bad. So we have a list of those. All the scams, IoTs, spam, blacklist. So within our enterprise tools, like if you're an enterprise customer, we have like external threats and different things. If somebody's infringing upon your information, like your website, your mobile apps, social, things like that, when you confirm it that that is bad, that goes on our blacklist. Google and Microsoft will take our blacklist and put it in production in about 10 to 15 minutes. So that will keep 95% of the world's browsers from accessing it. They get that red warning, do you really want to proceed? So it stops people from going there. And then the takedown services take about 1 to 4 days to take it offline. But one other thing that we have, a capability that no one else has, and this is revolutionary when you think about threat intelligence and threat hunting and things like that. When we find something that's bad and we have that document object model, it's saved forever. That raw data is saved forever. And if it wasn't bad, the metadata is saved forever. But it gives us the capability that, for example, I can go back in time. And you go, why do I need to go back in time with these pieces of data? Well, it's kind of like we have like the flux capacitor with Back to the Future, and we can do some cool things. So if we start from, let's say, a cookie value, and if the cookie value was, let's say, base 64 encoded, and we go, wow, we didn't realize that before. This threat actor is creating this base 64 encoded value, but that's really the cookie value. Let's now go back in time and see if this was happening anywhere else in the past and move that forward. So think of it like a sim, and you find something bad and you create a rule. Well, that rule doesn't go back in time and start from the beginning. It starts from that moment in time forward. So anything before you don't see, but from that point forward you see. But we have the ability to go back in time and put that rule in place. So we can take yesterday's aggregated data and we take today's data that we gathered, okay? We do it separate. So we have yesterday's data and today's data. And then what we do is we call the merge. And then we can go back and say, when you merge today's data with yesterday's data, go pull this value out from all of the data that you have and create a new aggregate data set for tomorrow. And then use that in the platform. So that's something unique that RiskIQ has. So when we go through and we do an investigation and we find out that smoking gun, that piece of data that linked all of the investigation together, we can go back in time and create a new data set. So when you look at cookies, for example, cookies were created because of that. So we went through and said, we have this data in the back end, but it's not available in PassiveTotal. Let's go back and pull out all the cookies, going back to the beginning of time, and roll that forward. So when we look at our data sets, and as that data comes in, and we're doing this every day, it allows us to really answer some questions. What's your security posture? What are your controls and policies? The modeling of what could happen. Are you monitoring this? And did this really happen? I need to know. So that helps you answer those questions. So when you look at the cyber kill chain, RiskIQ focuses everything before the firewall, outside your organization. Organizations have blinders and they want to see what they can control and observe themselves. So that's from the firewall in. And that gives us the capability that when somebody starts discussing an attack, asking if there's any compromised systems, a domain gets registered, it's typo squatting, there's nothing wrong with that, it gets parked, still nothing wrong, but now it has your logos or your images on there, then you can take action. And we can usually find it and stop it 1 to 4 days before it happens. So that prevents exposures and issues. But we continue to monitor it, that once it's taken down, it might pop up someplace else, and we can immediately see that and stop it. But the cool thing is you can't avoid the internet. If you want to be on the internet, you have to connect to it, and you have to follow the rules of the internet. And with that, if you're collecting the information from the internet, you can now use it to find the bad guys. So if we look at 2 threat actors, a person in Brazil, person in Canada, if the threat actor goes online, there's an IP address, the net block, autonomous system number, and even an internet service provider just from them going online. If they created a phishing email, they're going to connect to an email server, an email provider, they're going to have a language, they're going to have a date and time, they're going to write the message. It might even be an HTML email. And if they're going to do that, maybe there's some code in there that will link back to their infrastructure so they can fingerprint. They're going to send that data. It's going to go through the internet, different transit IPs, net blocks, autonomous systems, and it arrives at the user. The user, if it's HTML, there could be a read receipt, get notification, find out their operating system, all that information. So this is what we're dealing with. So if we can see the stuff and collect it, then you can use it. But we take all this information, we create these data sets. But there's a problem. Can't be everywhere. So if I look at a machine and then I go do something else and the threat actor does something on the machine and then attacks somebody and then changes it back and I go back, I didn't see anything. It's gone. So we say in order for you to really make an assessment and say something's good or bad, you need some points of proof. And you need probably 3 points of proof to really decide if this is bad. And so as we go through and we look at things, we're going to go, oh, they're using a free email certificate authority. Does that mean it's bad? No. But if it's also from a country where that company doesn't do business but it has their name, okay, that's also suspicious. Oh, and it also has some malicious code running on it. Oh, okay. Now all 3 of those gives you enough information to say that's bad. So when we go through and we look at these techniques and procedures that we're doing and how we're figuring out like what's happening, you can do this yourself in your organizations. And then we have all the different data sets. So one thing I wanted to show you, you're going to get all these slides today. So when we're done, we will make a PDF and send them out. And this is kind of like a reference. So we go through and every one of these data sets, I have questions you should think about, examples. So this is all going to be available to you. Now I'm going to jump ahead to a particular slide. Okay, so I want to explain this to you. So when we look at our virtual crawlers and what we're doing with these document object models, let's look at a website and what you see in the website. So when our crawler goes out there and interacts with the website, if we're looking at PassiveTotal.org, this is what it used to look like. We get the document object model. So we get the response in the DOM. Inside there's links. And inside the links, it will say like, oh, there's a login, there's a blog, there's these pieces. When we look at the dependent requests, we can see, hey, they went out to the HTTP PassiveTotal.org. It was redirected to HTTPS, and there was a JavaScript that was run because there's a specific type of font we like to use that was also called up. So we see those things. We also have the cookies. So there's an AWS cookie and a Whoopah tracker cookie, okay? So we see those. The certificate that was presented. So we operationalize this crawl data and create these data sets, these advanced data sets that we're gonna go through. And I have them all listed here. So Barrett, I need to get a volunteer. I wanna go through and walk through an investigation with somebody, and I'll show my screen, but I just want you to talk and we'll go through and we'll do it together. So do we have a volunteer? If you like to volunteer, raise your hand and we'll unmute your line and we will talk. So I'm gonna give you a second. And remember, if we pick you, I will give you a 30-day promo code when we're all done.
All right, looks like we have a volunteer.
We have a winner.
Yes, so
Okay,
Ganesh has volunteered, and let me unmute his line. Ganesh, you are unmuted.
Ganesh, can you hear me?
Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so here's the scenario that we're going to walk through. So you work for this DS Wholesale USA company. So this is a real company, okay? And you work there, and what type of work do you do?
I'm basically into incident response.
Okay, so you work for incident response, and let's say that you get a phone call from somebody at the organization saying, hey, a credit card company called and said, hey, people have been experiencing credit card fraud, and they've traced back to our systems, saying that it might have sourced from where we were, because it was the last place that all these people used before the fraud was seen. And they want us to investigate. But the systems were wiped because they were blacklisted for a period of time. So the company goes, hey, it's Black Friday's coming up. People are going to be buying things online. We need to be back up. Go back to a previously known backup and put the systems back up. So they did that, but now they tell you, hey, go back and do the investigation, and you don't have the systems. Okay, so if you have that type of situation, what we want to try to figure out was determine if the organization was compromised. How did the organization get compromised? And what do you need to do to resolve the compromise? And are you still susceptible? Like if you made that change, would you still be susceptible? Do you need to do anything else? And then what would you do to prevent this from happening in the first place? Okay, so that's what we're going to try to solve today, Ganesh.
Okay.
So I'm going to copy this real quick. Give me a quick second. I'm going to copy these.
I kind of use all the links that are already there.
Okay, so I'm going to just paste them into the chat so everyone has them.
Is it okay instead of hybrid analysis if I use VirusTotal?
You can try. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to do it together, and I'm actually going to be showing my screen, so then we'll just walk through together.
Sounds good.
Okay, so trying to copy these, and sometimes it doesn't let me. Hold on. Here we go. Okay, so that first link, don't worry about that first link. That's for later on. But here's There's all the different links that are listed there. And we're going to now do one more. I'm going to copy one last one. Okay.
I can right click.
Okay. So what we're going to do is the search that we're going to do inside of PassiveTotal. I put it into the chat so you don't make a mistake in typo squat, like type it wrong and not get to the right domain. Okay. So I'm going to run these queries real quick, this particular one, and then we'll use this and open up other tabs and start walking through the investigation and have a conversation. And I want to get to
Do I use my existing corporate account?
Sure. Yeah. Use your existing corporate account, and then I will run the queries on mine, and then we'll talk through it. Okay. So here we go. Okay. So I'm going to click on this real quick. Bring up my screen. I'm going to turn this off. Okay. And then I'm going to open up those different programs that we talked about. Give me a quick second. I have them all listed here. Okay. And you mentioned VirusTotal, so I have VirusTotal there as well. And I'm just going to grab this tab and bring it over to this one. Okay. So here we go. So we have this domain. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this. Okay. When you look at something and let's say your company goes, hey, are we still affected? Are we down? What will Google Safe Browsing allow you to do? Have you used it before?
Safe browsing will basically say if that SSL is valid, if it can be trusted, if it's blacklisted in any of its threat intel sources, then it'll basically warn you with a big red page saying that it's bad. Don't visit there.
True, but does it tell you? Does that mean that it's 100% good to go? That there's no problem with the domain?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, it just means they haven't found anything. There was nothing obvious that was on there that showed you that something's bad. But it's a good check, because if it's your company and it says it's bad, no one can get there. So you're not making money. So this will mean that people can actually visit it if the browser won't block it, but doesn't mean that you're safe. It just means that they haven't found anything that's bad on there. So let's now go back and let's look at the company that we say that we work for, and let's see what we can find. So let me just go through and explain the interface for the people that aren't familiar with RiskIQ, so you understand what happens and how it works, and then we'll jump through and start looking at the tabs of data. So if you take a look, there's this Analyst Insights at the very top, and what that is that analysts have come to us and said, we want you to kind of let us know, thumbs up, thumbs down, if something's good or bad or suspicious, that we should be aware of just by searching for something. So when you search for something, the thing that you search for, these Analyst Insights come up and say, okay, RiskIQ crawled it 2 days ago. It's not Alexa 1000. It resolves to a regular IP and it's registered. Upper left-hand corner, I can see the first time we saw it was on November 1st, 2018. And the last time we spoke to it was on the 19th, okay? This middle section we call it the heat map. Those squares represent 6 months worth of time, okay? When we look at the numbers in there, that represents the number of unique IP addresses we saw on that particular day. So this is the A records, the passive DNS that we saw. So if I look and if I move around, you can see those. Now, if you notice that there was a little triangle in this corner, when you see the triangle, that means something new on that day happened, like a new IP address came or one was taken away. So we see that there was a change there. Now on the curve on the bottom, and there's a curve on the top, that represents the end of the month or the beginning of a month. If it's on the bottom, it's the end. If it's on the top, it's the beginning. Now the color also represents something. So if I go and look at the legend, if it's gray, means that it was a non-routable IP address, okay? or there's no data. So if there's no number in there, that means that there's no data yet. But if there was a number in there, it could be a non-routable IP, like a 127.0.0.1, a non-routable IP address on the internet. And you're going, well, if you're scanning the internet, how are you seeing non-routable IP addresses? Well, we go talk to the DNS servers, and when we talk to a DNS server, we pull all the records. And those might have records of domains that are set to a loopback or an internal IP address. And we will pull those in and we'll see them. So a threat actor might stage something, make it a loopback address, set it up, turn it on for a few hours or a day or two, and then turn it back off. So if we see that, it will be green on those days where there's an overlap between a loopback or an internal IP, a non-routable IP, and a routable IP. Okay, so you'll see a different color change. Okay, or if it was turned off completely, you might see some blank time period. So for example, if we click here, this is now on the data bar. This will now show me all the data we have. You can see there was nothing, and then it's back on. And if we go back to the very beginning, hey, it was on a little bit and then it went off, and so you can actually see that time period. Now, a cool thing is that we're never in IT, we're the last ones to know when something happens almost. It's already happened most of the time. So we have to go back in time and figure out the time period. So I can click on one square and then go to another one, hold the shift key, and I can select just to show that data. So some websites or domains you go to, there's thousands of records. So you might need to filter it down. So that's how you do it. And if you want to go back and see all of them, I can either just refresh the browser window or click into another area down below and that will refresh it. So on the left-hand side, I can also filter results. So if I want to see only things that are routable, I can click on the checkbox, it turns green, and I see those results. If I click on it again, it turns it off. And if I click on the X, it removes them from the display, okay? So that's how the filtering works. And I can also get a history lesson just by hovering over like the ASNs and start looking. So I can say back in April of 2019, it was in the US, it was at Liquid Web, it's still Liquid Web, and I can see how things change. So that's, Ganesh, that's a walkthrough of how the interface works. So now let's start to examine this attack on your organization. So you were told that, hey, this happened in September, that fraudulent credit card transactions started happening in September, and there was some sort of skimmer that was used. Are you familiar with any type of skimmers, or did you attend last week's workshop?
A little bit, but I didn't attend last week's workshop.
Okay, so if we look at credit card skimmer, and if we start looking at some of these, you know, what are credit card skimmers? You're going to start to see some information. So if we come and look at, let's look at Krebs. Krebs will talk about it. They'll show what's happening. These are real physical ones, but it might be a website credit card skimmer. So if we can go web, let's look for web skimmer. Web skimmer. Okay. As we start going through, you're going to notice that we're going to come across what MageCart is. Have you heard of MageCart before?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So what MageCart is a skimmer that will run within JavaScript to look at what's happening on the page and take information, personal identifiable information, credit card information, credentials, it's really anything. And it sends it out. So the way that it works is a threat actor will find a vulnerability in somebody's real place, real like website, and will run some code to add some JavaScript to that legitimate website. When you go and you did a scan, if you did a scan of the website, you probably won't see it because it's only active from the client perspective. So on the server itself, you look, you don't see anything because it's a link to a file that will run in the browser of the intended victim. So when the intended victim will go out and talk to your e-commerce site, this code comes down to the local machine, and then it says, oh, okay, you're on the checkout. Okay, let me go and grab this additional code, bring it back in, and start monitoring. And when you put in your credit card information, before you hit submit or when you hit submit, take that information and give it to this third party over here. So then your credit card stuff goes back to the real legitimate place, but a copy of what you did gets sent to the threat actor, okay? And that's how they're exfiltrating the data. So the data is not going through the e-commerce site, it's going from the end user directly out. So if we're going to look to see what type of JavaScript was executed on your company's domain, are you familiar with what data set would be able to tell you that information, Ganesh?
Either trackers or cookies is what I'm thinking.
Well, let's take a look. So let's look at trackers. So if we look at the trackers are the little bits of code that look at like user experience. So this might be the Facebook tracking pixel, Google Analytic codes, things like that. The cookies are also, tracking the individual user, where you went, if you came back, things like that. But the real place where you would see that information is in the host pairs. Okay, so within the host pairs, this is where you're seeing like what's coming in and what's going out. So when that page loads from the end user perspective, what was coming in and what was going out. So you might see, oh, an image came in from Facebook, or the Google Analytics code went out and went to Google. So you'll see that traffic flow of what's happening. So if we take a look at the causes and we look at scripts, we can now start to look at which scripts were on here. And if we take a look, we see that March 10th, March 9th, March 10th was the first scene, last scene. So then if we look to see what happened around September, the only change that really happened around September was this one domain. And you go facelook.no. Are you familiar with facelook.no? Now remember, don't go to these places directly because we're dealing with things that are active and bad. Okay. Yeah. So what we can do is I can open this up in another tab. Okay. Or if I can click on it, it will take me there. There's two ways that we can pivot. If I click on it, it will take me right there, but I don't want to go directly there. So let me, I want it to give me a second. Okay. So if I open up another tab, I can take a look, and immediately what I see is that RiskIQ has, on my screen, yours might be different because when you think about like when you tag things can be tagged from a system perspective or from an organization perspective. So if you're doing an investigation, I can come in here and you can go to categories and I can add some information in here. So does your screen look different than mine?
A little bit, but I still see the tag that it's blacklisted 13 days ago.
Yeah, so you see the analyst insights, but you don't see these up here, correct?
No, I don't.
Right, because I added those tags. So what happens is, as a threat investigator, if you're doing this for your organization, saying, hey, this is good, this is bad, and you're going through all the different IOCs, you can start tagging these things, okay? Now, for us, when we do some of these publications, we'll take them and make them system tags so everyone in the world sees. But you might not want everybody in the world to know that, hey, you're actively looking at this threat actor and it's bad, because then they might know that you're looking at it.
But
So
if you categorize something from an enterprise standpoint that it's malicious, would that be looked into from a passive total standpoint?
yeah, we do see those things, and we do look at those things.
Okay.
So as you go through and you tag, we will see those, and research will look at them and go, yeah, it's confirmed. And that's how we find out some stuff that when we go through and we do our research, we will go through and look to see what people have tagged and say, okay, now someone made a public project and it's all in here. We'll look at those things as well. So, but these analyst insights are coming out of them, like our blacklists and things like that. So we see that this thing has been blacklisted. Okay, so if I copy this and I go back to the Google Safe Browsing, and let's take a look to see what Google Safe Browsing says. There's nothing wrong with this. Okay, well, let's go to hybrid analysis. Okay, and what I'm going to do is let's look to see if there's any report, so I don't have to like have this run for a little bit. Oh, it wants me to log in. Hold on. Okay, so then there's been one of them. It says it's malicious. Okay, so if I look at this, hey, it's saying, hey, it's malicious. So from the Google Safe Browsing perspective, they didn't see anything wrong. But from the hybrid analysis perspective, because they actually sandboxed it and saw what's happening and what it's doing, they've gone through and said, hey, this is malicious. Okay, and they show that there's some open source intelligence also associated with this that shows, hey, it's bad. Okay, so the reason why I like to go through and look at these other tools is because you get a different perspective. You get some additional information on what's happening here. Okay, now let's take a look at it from the perspective of our domain. Okay, so I'm going to copy this now, and I want to see this in the URL scan IO. Okay, so I'm going to run this, and it says, okay, show me all the things that are street lamps. Okay, bicycles. There's no bicycle. Okay, so I'm going to run this query now. So what's happening is they're going to go out and they're going to crawl it. They're going to pull all the data in. I've done this before, so I have it as a saved search as well, but I want you to see this perspective. So what's important about this is that it's going out and gathering the data for you. So instead of you going out and visiting a site, you have this buffer between you and the third party. And what's nice about that is if this was the threat actor, if we went to the bad guy's site directly through this tool, they wouldn't know that you're doing it. Because they don't see that traffic. They see the traffic coming from URL scan IO. And from inside of here, I get an image, so I can show how it looks like safely. And I can look to see what's happening in here. So if I look at facelook.no, I can see, hey, there's a script. There's a script that's running. So it's actually seeing the script that we said inside of PassiveTotal. Now, in this particular case, this threat actor wrote some code to hide itself. So like if you went to the real website and tried to look at the script and like opened up your developer tools in Chrome, you wouldn't see it. It hides. So when the developer tools open, the thing turns off and it's not there. The minute you close the developer tools, it activates and it runs a second script. So the first one is checking your browser to see, do you have the developer tools open? Are you really a browser? Is your Windows 0? You know, it looks at all these size things, and then it will kick off another piece of the code if you're really in a browser and you're not investigating it. And then there's a second piece to this attack, okay? And it's all obfuscated with base64. They do it like multiple times, like a zip inside of a zip inside of a zip with the same password. It's kind of what this threat actor is doing, okay? So now that we know that, hey, there was this JavaScript that was affected with this, okay? If we come back and we look at this Facebook, facelook.no, we can copy this, okay? And if we go to PassiveTotal, I'm going to go into the threat intel portal, okay? So there's this classic PT, which we were running in, and there's this new PT look. If we search from here, okay, we can start to see different types of, we see the same sort of queries that happened. But there's this actual, not this particular one, sorry, featured article. We go to here. There was this group, this mage cart group, okay? And inside of here, there are all these different domains that are listed. Now, I went through and started to look at the activity of what was happening on here. And there's this actual link to it right here, okay? Showing this, this domain, this part of this mage cart group 12, okay? So if we go through and read this description, what it talks about is that there's a version of Magento, a Magento 1 and before, that's susceptible to an attack. And if you were running this older version of the e-commerce software from Adobe, you could be attacked with this type of attack where somebody can go in there and modify the JavaScript. And if you modify the JavaScript, you can execute code. So what would you need to do now, Ganesh, if you wanted to see if you were running that particular version of Magento? Because nobody on the call is a vulnerability person. How would you tell with inside of PassiveTotal? Where would you look?
From inside PassiveTotal?
Yes. Which tab do you think it would be under?
Into the trackers?
Could be. Let's look at trackers. Okay, so trackers, nope, it's all the, let's look under components this time.
Components, okay?
Yeah. So when we look at components, we can now see from the beginning of time that we started looking at this domain, what we saw here. And if we take a look, you can see back in September 18th, okay, to November 19th, which is, today is the 19th, it's still there. It's running Magenta version 1.7. So even though your organization went back and restored it to a previous known good backup that was months ago, it has this bad code on here, this Magenta version 1. And if we take a look, I have a, let me show you this. As of June 2020, Magenta 1 is not supported anymore. It's nothing that you're not going to get any support for this. So you have to upgrade or you're susceptible. So if we go back and we take a look, we see that, hey, even if I go back to a known good backup, threat actor can, this is all automated. They can reinfect the machine immediately and start stealing the credit card stuff. So now you have some information. You can say, hey, they went from, on March 10th, they went from the 0.74, they went to a 1.7, but it's still a version 1.
Yeah.
So it's not going to fix anything. So yeah, they went through and said, okay, we need to upgrade. Well, they didn't upgrade to 2. They upgraded to 1.7, which is bad. So it didn't help them. So they're still getting their stuff stolen. So what would you have to tell what would you need to do with the vulnerability people?
Patch.
Yeah, you're gonna say, hey, upgrade or patch. You can't patch to a 1, you have to go to a 2, but that might break the site. So you need to make sure it's not gonna break and upgrade to version 2 something to protect the organization. Now, the other piece that you might need to do is you're gonna have to go through and take what out? You're gonna have to go look for, this particular script, pixel.js, and say, that needs to be taken off because that's the code. That's the bad code. So even if you patch, if the code is there, it's still going to run. So you have to go through and figure this out and take it out.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why I like to use all of these tools. I could stay within PassiveTotal and use our backend stuff to do it, but I'm trying to show all of you the pieces that you might need to look at in order to see what happened. And even though you're not touching the physical machine, signals are being collected. And these signals that are being collected can help answer the questions. Were we infected or not? Yes. Credit cards are being stolen because you're running this bad known malicious code that's associated with a threat actor stealing credit card data, skimming. It's on the site. You have a version of code that you upgraded to that's still not good enough, which you're going to be infected again, and it's still on the machine. So you might have thought you did the right thing as an organization, but the threat investigators are the ones that are going to go back and say, no, you missed it. This is the piece that needs to be erased from the machine, and you need to go to this version. Okay. So Ganesh, are there any questions so far on what we're looking at?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So Ganesh, I want you to, I'm gonna give another slide real quick. Okay. Okay, so this is based upon what we just learned. Okay. So there's several different domains that are listed here. Okay. So I'm going to copy them. I'm going to paste them into the chat for everybody. And then I want people on the at home, we're going to go through and we're going to use the techniques that we just looked at, using the websites that we just looked at to see, hey, are they still susceptible? Are they infected? Did they fix it? If they fixed it, when were they cleared? When did it come off their machines? Because you can go back now and say, now that the you see the first date seen and the last day seen, if it showed that it was there, that last day seen shouldn't be today's date. It should be a previous date. So you'll be able to tell if it came off or not. So I want us to go through and look at these. Okay. So I'm going to just pause for a second. I'm going to copy these and I'm going to put them into the chat. Okay. So now we can go through and look at these. So Ganesh, pick one, any one of them, just tell me which one you're going to look at. And then I'll choose that one as well. And then let's walk through. And if anybody is on the one of the attendees, if you want to walk through one, we'll walk through one together as well. So and then I'll give you a 30-day code as well when we're done. So Ganesh, which one would you like to do?
Second.
Okay, the costzu.com.
Costzu.com. Yep.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close these out. Okay. Okay. So the first thing that we need to do is what, Ganesh?
We'll have to look at this. We'll have to put this in the RiskIQ, the domain.
Okay.
And also look at the Google Safe browsing.
Okay. So let me bring up the Google Safe browsing. Give me a second. Okay. I'm going to copy this real quick. Okay, let's take a look. Looks good. Google says it's fine.
Then we'll look at the host pairs.
Okay, so let's take a look at the host pairs. Okay.
And I see a couple of sites, .ir domains, .ir on .pw that probably don't belong here.
.ir.pw. IR. Okay. Those are connecting to it. Okay. That's true. That could be so these domains are reaching into this one. So the way that the child parent works, think of it this way. If your child had something, you can take it from them. Or you can say, what do you have? I'm going to take it back. So if there is a script, for example, we have this first one that looks here. So this cost.zu is reaching in to this script and taking it back. Okay. So so this parent is going to this child and grabbing this this script. Okay.
And the Facebook.no is back.
One second.
The Facebook.no, I see that here, which is also a mage card. Yes,
that was the one that we just did. So this is the same one. So if we take a look, when was the last day seen? Okay, it showed the 19th. So it showed that, hey, we looked. So there's two different ways that we can look at this. So when we come up here, this was crawled 2 days ago. So when you look at this, you go, hey, this was crawled 2 days ago. Shouldn't this date be 2 days ago? Well, you have to think of it that when RiskIQ crawls the internet, we merge all that data together. So we probably crawled this facelook.no today. And because we did that, we know that there was a relationship, because we can look from the child perspective as well and see who reached into me and go, oh, it was this parent. So we can see both relationships. So just because the data down here might be different than the date of when this was crawled, or maybe never crawled by RiskIQ, we will still have data that links it together. Okay. So we see that, hey, as of the 19th, this facelook.no was connected to this one. Okay. So yeah, so we know it's still there. So now let's look at the components. Let's see what version that they're running of stuff.
Magento 1.8.
1.8. So they went to 1.8. So here's 0.74 and here's 1.8. So somebody upgraded. They didn't upgrade to 2. One's not supported anymore.
They are still vulnerable.
Yeah. So just because somebody goes, okay, 0.74 was bad, so long as supported, we upgraded. You need to pay attention. Okay. So as threat investigators or SOC analysts, even though vulnerability management is not our expertise and it's not our area, we might need to play a role in the organization to let them know, hey, in order for us to be safe, you need to go out there and you need to upgrade to version 2 because version 1 is no longer supported as of June, and you have a bad script in here. And they might go, well, where is that script? So let's find out where that script is. It's probably the same script, but the only way to know is to look at the script. So let's check. And this is another way for you to see, is it really on there right now? Because remember, we're gathering this data and presenting it to you. So if we presented it a while ago and they just upgraded it or just fixed it, this is going out right now. It's going to go grab the data, bring it back, and we'll see if that facelook.no is still there.
It is there.
Okay, so we'll look at HTTP, and I will look at facelook. There it is, pixel.js. Okay, so now we know what JavaScript needs to be removed from the servers and what it needs to be upgraded to. So Ganesh, hey, thank you. So if you can send an email, or not an email, go into the chat and you'll see my name in the chat. Send me a private one with your email, and I'll make sure that when we're done today, I'll create a code and I'll send it to you. Okay? So you get a 30-day extended trial. Okay? Ganesh, thank you so much. I want to know, Barrett, did anybody else volunteer to talk to us?
Let me check. 1 second. think folks are being a little shy right now.
I see one hand up. I see one hand's
Yeah,
up.
coming back, and actually might have done it. Let me open up the line here, and I want to be sensitive of name pronunciations. I will let him, hold on 1 second, unmute.
Was it Wooter? Is that the one?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Line is unmuted now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yes, we hear
Yeah.
you fine. Thank you for joining us today. And how do you pronounce your name? Because I want to make sure we pronounce it correctly.
It's easier if you use Walter because it's
Walter? Okay.
yeah.
No problem. Thank you, Walter, for joining us today. So which one would you like to look at?
I had a look at the first one, the studiopc.com.brazil.
Okay.
BR.
No problem. And where do you join us from? What area?
Netherlands.
Netherlands. Okay. Hey,
Yeah.
I have to tell you, one of my favorite trips ever was to the Netherlands. I did a workshop in Amsterdam and had a fabulous time. It was an incredible place.
I think I might have actually attended that one a few years ago.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. So I got to probably meet you in person. So let's take a look at this one. So where should we begin?
First, I had to look at
It was this one, right? This one.
Yeah. What I did is first I had to look at the host pairs,
Okay.
and there immediately the Facebook.lo popped up.
Okay. So let's look. So I did it by script, and let's look at the Facebook.no. Okay, and it still shows activity. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
So going to URL scan, you also get a hit on the script there if you go to the HTTP.
okay, I'm doing that right this second. So what I'll do is, to save time, since you already ran it, I will just bring up the results. So there's one 3 minutes ago. Okay.
Yeah.
And we look at HTTP, and if I look for face look, there it is. Yep, it's there. Okay. And then if we take a look here, still fine. Okay. Okay. And then what are they still susceptible?
Wouldn't know because they don't seem to use Magento.
Okay. Right.
So they use, but so I have to look what other stuff might be vulnerable.
Right. It could be Apache. It could be, something that's in here. I haven't gone through and looked at this one all the way, but this was one that I wanted to bring up because you look at this and you go, wait a second, I don't see. I don't
see a positive JavaScript framework, which.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. It's probably something to do with some vulnerability with like the JavaScript framework library, something that's in here that allows them to put this on, or it was previously infected and now it's changed, but it still has the JavaScript somewhere in there. Yeah, this was a strange one, but this is what I wanted to bring up, is that as you go through and you look at these, so like one thing I wanted to show you was, we know that one bad domain, okay? So if I looked at that Facebook.no, okay, I can either click on it or right click and open another tab, okay? So when I do this and I look at the host pairs, so there's 200 host pairs here. If I take a look, anything that is a parent reaching to the child for Facebook.no is potentially compromised. I would look at this and go, hey, these are compromised. And if you take a look at the dates that are listed here, when they're first and last seen, It's a lot. So as we go through and we take a look at these, this is a way that now you can go back and look. For example, if you're going to do some shopping this year online, you might want to come and take that organization that you're going to buy something from, and if there's any scripts, for example, that are running there, run those pivots and look to see, are they linking to anything that's been marked as malicious or suspicious, because you might need to go through and decide that maybe you might want to buy something from a different site. Did you run any of the other ones that were out here?
Not yet.
Okay, so this was another one. This was another one, the Dolphin Bridal Jewelry place. Okay, and this one's been blacklisted. Okay, so if we looked at this one in the Google Safe Browsing, let's see, it's not blacklisted anymore. Let's take a quick look here at URL Scan.io. I'll let that go for a minute and we'll come back. Let's look at the components and see what type of components they have here. Magento, there's 3 Magentos. Let's see. 1.9, they're up to 1.9. Almost protected. This is why it's important to talk with the people in your organizations and see what's happening, because as we go through and we take a look at these, face look, yep, same pixel. Now, one thing I wanted to show you, we can also look from the perspective of what things have been submitted to URL Scan.io. So when we take a look at this facelook.no, I can copy this. I can look at the pixel and see everywhere that pixel thing has been run. Okay, so you can see all these different domains, or I can search for that domain and see, hey, where did I see a link to this domain? And you'll notice this is another way that you can pivot around and find things that maybe haven't been, that were submitted but weren't really fully investigated yet, to find additional correlations to this attack that you can do with these types of tools. So even though you don't have access to the machine, you don't have the logs, can't see what's there, you really do with the tools that are out there from the outside perspective looking in. This is the threat intelligence that makes things actionable for your organizations. Strategic things in tactical might tell you they're affecting Magento, they're affecting this and that, but they don't really tell you who's affected or if you're affected, and that's where the operational type of threat intelligence that RiskIQ does makes it relevant and actionable for your organizations. Now, the other piece that we can look at as well is, if you attended last week's talk, I went through and showed you about 10 to 15 different queries to look at Magento. And you can do a query on the types of components that are listed. So for example, if we went back to, let me bring up this one. We have these e-commerce platforms and we have a value here. So if I just choose Magento, okay, if I select this one, this will be all the different versions of Magento that come up. And it will take a second to run because it's a fairly large query. And you can see how big the pot is of all the versions of Magento that are out there. And if you look, these are the IP addresses where we saw it. Now the component piece sometimes shows up as 0, but if you click on it, it will run that query and bring the data back. It's a very big query. So there's 417,000 domains with magenta, okay? And if we look at the IP addressing, they're listed as well. Now, for each one of these types of magenta that's here, so you can run for the actual versions as well and get those. So I thought I opened this one up in a, let me look at the components. I didn't run it as a right click, so I lost it. So let me go back and show you that real quick. Magento. So I can run them and right click and open another tab. And that will also run the queries and show me these different versions. So I can actually go through and run these in such a way to find particular ones. So if there's a vulnerability out there, you can see how big this vulnerability is in the world. So there's 23,000 IP addresses running version 1.9. So this is another aspect that you can see how big the problem is that you might be dealing with. Your partners you can look at if you have sales things that you're doing. This is why it's important to really be thorough and go through and do your investigations. Now, Walter, is there anything else that we should look at from these perspectives that we might be missing?
Look at don't know exactly. I see the resolving IP has been blacklisted. That's I gotta.
It was blacklisted, yeah, but it's not like when I go to Google, it's not blacklisted anymore. But it was blacklisted, but they must have like upgraded, taken it off, and then it probably got back on. That's what I suspect.
No, at the moment I don't see any other.
Okay, so Walter,
stuff.
do you mind staying on for one more?
Yep, no, never mind, don't mind.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up another one. Okay, so there's a we just published another publication. So for example, if I went to the main threat intelligence portal, one of the featured articles is this new one. Okay, and it's talking about a different MageCart skimmer. So we number the MageCart threat actors like from like 1 to, I think we're up to 13 now that we're tracking. And this one ties back to things that we saw in groups 1 and 2. So there was an article that was recently published, and you can look here and you see the public articles. So these are the public indicators that were put into the article. And then if we take a look, there are RiskIQ indicators. These are the extra ones that the threat intelligence and researchers like Jonathan and others will find, and they'll add to these articles, okay? So when we publish, we'll give a description of what we found, go through and talk about it, what they talked about in the article, and then give additional facts or flavor or interpretation of what we read in that. So one of them was this facebookmanager.com, okay? So in this particular, they were doing WebSockets to be able to connect. And if we take a look, it was this particular Facebook Manager API, okay? So I'm going to copy this article, okay? And I'm going to paste it into the chat for us so we can start from here, okay? So now that we're in the article, we can go in and we're going to run this one Facebook API Manager query. So I can right click and say open another tab. It will run this query, okay? Now, they mentioned that inside of this thing that they found, they're identifying the threat infrastructure that's used. They're not talking about the victims, who's been attacked, who's been compromised by these. But that information is available and it's you can find it. So like if you wanted to find out if you were affected, you could do it. In this particular case, they were talking about a cookie, okay? And a special name in that cookie. So if you notice here, this cookie right here is the cookie name. So if I want to find out where this cookie is being delivered, from what sites. That's how they've tied it back. So if I right click and open that up in another tab, I can now see every place in the world where this cookie is being served up. And so if we take a look, that goes back to this tags-manager.com, and inside of here, that was one of the bad domains that were listed, okay? So if we look at the search, all these domains that are connecting here with this cookie are potential victims of this attack, okay? So this is the type of thing that when you go through and you're doing your shopping, you can start to look for, to see, hey, are there anything that's out there that I need to be aware of, or are they linking to this? This is why I wanted to do this particular type of exercises so close to the biggest shopping in America, is around the Thanksgiving Cyber Monday time. So Walter, when you we have here, how many? We have 178 different hosts, and there's over 101 different IP addresses. Crazy. So should we pick one and just go take a look?
What I saw in there was one mentioned. It was the IP address started with 8.209.
209.
Was in the
this one? This one?
Yeah.
The first one? 89?
Yeah. What I did was go to the traffic analyze.biz, which is and open that up.
So will you put it into the chat to me, and I will bring it up, because I'd love to see new tools.
I didn't use new tools. I just opened traffic analyzer.biz in a new tab.
Right. So
RiskIQ
traffic
analyzer.biz.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't visit it, but
it won't let me go there.
Yeah.
So,
probably know why, because it's
a bad
malicious.
one.
It's also MageCard.
It's MageCard. So yeah, so firewall's working. See. So so if we take a look at this domain, okay. One thing that I want to show you on the screen right here. So this is I have in our company we use CrowdStrike. So CrowdStrike looks at all of our machines, all the internal stuff, but there's two different components. There's a threat intelligence piece, and then there's the endpoint piece, like what's happening on the individual boxes. And if you notice, my analyst insights is probably different than everybody else's out there right now, because you probably don't have this CrowdStrike piece enabled inside your if you're running CrowdStrike to bring the data across. But what this is the threat intel. So when I take a look at this, it's part of the kill chain. It's malicious. Managed loader. Can't really read it. So it's a threat downloader. And if I take a look at the CrowdStrike, I can look at the intelligence, and I can bring this across and see all the other related pieces that they have as well. So this is something else that RiskIQ has with different providers. We have it with Splunk, with Microsoft, and with CrowdStrike to bring their information, internal system information, and their threat intelligence that they might have, and bring it in to make it better. And then we can take this data and go back into those systems and find new detections as well. But what's nice is I can look here and see no one internally in my organization, there's no endpoints that reached out to this. So that gives me peace of mind that nothing internally reached out from my organization because of this CrowdStrike tab showing up with a 0 on it, okay? But yeah, so yeah, this has only been up for probably 2 months. It was up, because I can see here's one, and that's probably a month and a half, almost 2 months worth of data listed there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And also, if you look at the OSINT, which is also could also be helpful. It's been flagged as in your one of your articles.
That's right. There's you can open these up. Here's one back in September, and this one back in November. Yep. Yeah. So this is the other pieces that really help your investigations along from a single interface when you run these queries to get all these extra pieces of data to fill in the picture and give you the complete thing of what's happening quickly without having to really jump around too much. Walter, thank you for that.
Okay.
So Barrett, I'm going to move on and show 2 more things because we have about half an hour left, a little less than half an hour. So I want to go in and show you 2 other aspects. And Barrett, you can mute the lines, and then we'll see if anybody else wants to join in. I'm going to go back to my slide deck real quick and bring up the presentation. Okay. So one thing that we did was we started to track holiday shopping observations, and we wanted to see, hey, what we're seeing, what was coming up, because a lot of the threat actors we were noticing, over time is newly observed domains is where a lot of these things happen. Like you saw on my firewall that, hey, I tried to go to something and it said, hey, it's malicious, you can't go there, but also blocks if it's just new, even if it's fine, because sometimes it takes a little bit of time to go out and scan those things and understand what's happening. So those newly observed domains can be a ticking time bomb, can have some bad stuff in there. And if we're not fast enough to be able to go and investigate, the tools might lag behind a couple days to be able to protect your organizations. So what we started to do is we have these 2, I'm going to list them out real quick. We have 2 different domains. We have a microsite that we stood up, and these holiday observations that I'm putting into the list. Okay, so open up the first one. So here's it talks about what we're doing, but then we have this microsite that comes up. Okay, now as new domains are purchased, we are tied in with all the different registers. We know what was purchased, and then we start looking to see, hey, has it been parked? Now that it's parked, what's happening with it? What's occurring on there? And we start looking at these rather quickly as they show up. And if we take a look at this graph, you can look over time. We started this back on November 11th, and you can see here's all the Cyber Monday pieces. Here are all the holiday things. But the things happening for Black Friday, those domains are pretty big. And what we do is we actually have this data here. So if you wanted to go through and get a list of these newly observed domains and do some pivots and investigations, you can. So if I come in and I just click on one of these, it will download and open up a CSV file, and I'll open that up real quick. Or in this case, it's a list where it says what type of match was it? Was it for Black Friday? Was it for Cyber Monday? And that's this first column. And then you'll have the domains that are listed here. So I went through and looked at about 100 of these. And out of the ones that I found, they were all pretty much legitimate that are dealing with companies doing advertising for a big organization, or there were subdomains that were stood up for these sales that are going to be happening at organizations. So I give you this list to go and have fun and to go through and see if you can find something outside of the workshop. But I didn't find any smoking guns in these. So I just wanted to let you know. But this is something that's available so you can see these trends and what's happening. We're going to have some published data on what we're seeing, the amount of online shopping, where it was coming from. We're going to have some articles all around this coming up in the coming week or so. but this is a way for you to start looking at that data, okay? I'm gonna jump in and show you some mobile apps that we looked at with the same type of report. So give me a quick second. Oops. Let me open up my browser and bring this here. So I'm going to log into a different system. So enterprises will use us to understand, we have this map of the internet, but we can look at that map of the internet and show what you have, your perspective, the assets that you have, the hosts, what's installed, what's running, constantly look at the JavaScript for you to protect you, to prevent mage card and things like that. Look at your attack surface. We call that your attack surface. And that the threat intelligence layers on top of that. So then I can make it more actionable for you. I can say, this article talks about this vulnerability with Magento, and you're running that version of Magento. So I can have that overlap to say, you should pay attention to this. That's what gives us that capability of really taking that very broad strategic or tactical type of intelligence and really make it operational for you to say, these are things that we need to focus on. 1,000 articles were published, but only 6 are really focused onto our business, our industry, our customers, or things that we're running. And inside of here, we have this thing where we're looking at phishing, domain infringement, rogue mobile apps, and some content. This could be like social media, things like that. And this is our, we call this our digital footprint. You might hear it as global inventory or external threats, mobile data. All these things come into this nice interface. And we're going to be looking at mobile apps. So we looked at like the top 10 organizations around the world in the UK and in the US. So 20 different types of orgs, and said, let's look at those types of things and see if anybody's targeting them. So what we did was we went through and tried to figure out, looking at the real and the bad mobile apps. We have over 30 million mobile apps in our database, and I'll get into that and show you the back end of that and everything that's there. But what happens is we'll find the real ones and then say, based on those real apps in the real app stores like Google and Apple's app stores, look at over 300 different app stores around the world and see what you found. And so if I take a look at the blacklists, let's look at the blacklists. Okay, and let's look for, let's find a good one. These are all the different categories of why something was blacklisted. Okay, let me find a good one. Here we go, malicious score of 85. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these mobile apps, and then we're going to get into the mobile app database, and we can look up other things. So if you have a particular type of app or app name, let me know and throw it in the chat, and I'll run a query of that as well. So when we look at these mobile apps, we put it into here. We'll actually say why it's blacklisted. I'm just going to jump into the actual application and show it to you. So we will actually show you where it is in the world. Okay. We actually show you what was stated in the description on the website for that mobile app. If it's something on the Apple App Store, we work with them. They give us the metadata. We don't go in there and grab any or do any of the analysis. They do that really well. But if it's on the other ones, we actually bring them in, sandbox them, and see what's happening. So if you notice that this is not in English, so I can go over here and we have Google Translate built in, where it automatically puts it into the language that I'm used to. And the reason for this is that when we do some of these investigations, your mobile app might be in a foreign country, and we might need to look at that, or you might need to look at that. Unless you know the language, you might not be able to search or find it or see what's happening. But we do it many different ways. One might be from the name, the description, the actual hash value for it, or even looking at the files that are inside of the APK and seeing those and what versions those are with the hashes to see if anybody's using any of your code. Now, when we sandbox it, we'll also look at the permissions. And if you look at this particular one, this is Ireland online shopping sites. You can see that disables the key guard, unmount the file system, they get the fine access. You can call the phone, you can read the context, read the logs, kill background processes, get tasks, internet, read the call log. So you get all these permissions. Now, it's kind of crazy when you look at some of these permissions that some of these apps are doing. And then we can also look to see who they were communicating out to while this app was being sandboxed. And you can see there's some YouTube, there's some Google Play Store. So a lot of these might be also to even increase the number of views or subscriptions or different things to different sites. They might be running all these things inside of here. And so you can see that there's a couple pages of stuff that happened. We also have copies of the actual APK files. So that's something that we have. So if you work with us and we're doing app monitoring for you, and there is a bad app out there and you want to take a look at it, we actually have copies of them that we can share those with our customers for that. The files inside of there, so this, remember I mentioned that we actually look what's inside the APK. This takes a little bit of time to show up, but once you'll see the list, you'll see how we can look at the individual pieces to say if somebody's using your logos, your images, your code, different pieces like that. So we have all that stuff available inside of there. And it's probably pretty big, so I'll let that go for a second. Still loading. While that's happening, I'm going to go back and open it again. And it might still be loading. Yep, there it goes. Oh. Okay. So instead of going back in there and waiting for it to load again, I will also show you that we also look at all the different vendors to see, antivirus vendors, why this thing was blacklisted. And then where we matched it on the different blacklists and how we rated it and what we saw and like who said it was good or bad. All this information is inside of here. But the main things that we saw with these, this is not something that's readily, it's not available inside the PassiveTotal interface. In the future, we're looking at trying to see the overlap of like the URLs where something was communicating to and seeing which mobile apps were communicating with them. So we can give you that perspective inside of the interface to show you when you're looking at the infrastructure, how the mobile interface is connected to that. So that will be in the future, we'll be able to show those things. But out of the top 10 things that we saw online, there were the 10 major stores. These are the ones that we found. So there were 3 that looked similarly. So this was on eBay. This one's also looking at Black Friday pieces, and it's you can see that there's Trojan. It's Trojan. It's also loading up. They can load up other things directly into it. Once you open the app, it can call out to a command and control and do different things. So these 3 are probably all variants of the same one. There's UK shopping, Black Friday ads, and if you notice, this one says 2017. But if we take a look and we look at the versions that are out there, there's a version from 2019 in here. So this thing gets, and there's a 2020 in here as well. So these are, we have the history of these over the time. So as these threat actors put new things online, we grab them and we see them. So
hey, Benjamin,
yes.
Question.
Sure.
If you have RiskIQ Enterprise Access and CrowdStrike Falcon, can you link these 2 services, or do you need another subscription to RiskIQ Illuminate? That came in from the audience while you were going through that.
So like if I'm using PassiveTotal and I already have CrowdStrike, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a great question. So Barrett, if you give me a second, I'll go in and show how that works. But you have to be the administrator of CrowdStrike in order to enable it. Okay. So give me a second. I'll log in. I have to use my phone to get my authentication code. So give me a second. Oh. I won't be able to do it. I got a new phone and I don't have it set up. So, but basically inside of the console for CrowdStrike, there's a store, and inside the store there's PassiveTotal, and you just have to say install, enable, and basically in the back end, it will take the endpoint protection and the threat intelligence API keys and share those with RiskIQ and add it to your organization. So then everyone that's associated with your organization will have access to see that tab of the CrowdStrike data inside of RiskIQ. So that's all you have to do to enable it to start the trial and see the data in there. Yeah. Is that okay?
That'll work.
Okay. The other one that I saw that we saw was an Amazon one with a free app piece. And when we take a look at this particular application, it's reading permissions off the phone, some history, different things. They can uninstall different things and have access to the internet. And this one was a pretty bad Trojan that was out there. So those are the major ones that I saw. So there wasn't really anything this year that I came across that in previous years that was truly something to look out for. But be aware of the big attacks that I'm seeing this year are the ones that are using the skimmers inside of the websites, the e-commerce mage cart type skimmers. Those are the big attacks I'm seeing this year compared to previous years where it might have been a malicious mobile app tricking you to put your information and to find the best deals, and it steals your credentials so it can do bad things. So that's what I have there. Barrett, were there any other questions from people in the audience? Because we're running low on time. I want to be aware of that.
Yeah, we had a couple questions. Another one that came in was around, now that everyone's working remotely, threat intel seems to be more important than ever.
Yes.
Where do you see threat intel heading next year?
That's a great question. So when we started off the year, like last year, we did the thing with CrowdStrike, where we took the inside perspective that organizations had and married it with the outside information that RiskIQ had to give you that 360-degree visibility. And that kicked off last October, 2019. So if somebody visited a site and you're investigating, you would see it in PassiveTotal who in the organization actually went there. So it really helped bring that information in, and then you can export the data from PassiveTotal and make new detections inside of CrowdStrike, for example, or Splunk or Microsoft. So with that information of marrying those two together, it brought like the threat intel piece to make it more actionable for the organizations. But we also started to talk about vulnerabilities and things like that we've been seeing for years. And because everyone went remote with COVID, you know, people had really good instrumentation to understand what was happening inside their organizations, but then everybody got kicked out of their organizations. And that visibility and control that they saw disappeared. So the threat intel that I see is that we're going to have to marry the strategic stuff that we go, these are the trends that we see, this is what is occurring. So think of it like a weather report. You might say, hurricane season this year in Florida is going to be a lot bigger than previous years. So that's kind of like saying, okay, we're going to see a lot more e-commerce types of attacks because everyone's remote. They're going to be buying more. Okay, great. But then it gets into the tactical where he says they're going to attack Magento. They're going to attack version 1 of Magento. So that's more like the tactic of what we see the attacks are going to happen. But that threat intel doesn't have the crux of making it meaningful to you. So now all of a sudden you're going to go, well, do I need to worry about that? Do I have any partners that have that? So that's where RiskIQ will come in to say, we're going to make that threat intelligence stuff that's out there relative to you to say, hey, your customers, your partners, yourself have this vulnerability, this problem, or this attack is occurring, and making it more actionable for you to say, you need to fix this particular machine, you're running the wrong version of Magento, you have this script that's there that just changed. And that's where you're going to see this merge of threat intel from the outside with the tactical thing that PassiveTotal and RiskIQ has always done, but we're going to blend that together to make it more fluid to say those trends and warnings like the weather. You go, hey, the hurricane is going to hit sometime between now and next Wednesday somewhere on the Gulf Coast of Mexico. And then you have that operational piece that says within the next 48 hours, landfall will be in this specific area. Think of that same thing for threat intel, but RiskIQ will be able to do all of those and give you that down to earth tactical piece to take control and action as fast as possible. I think that's where we're headed with the threat intel. For a long time, it's noise that you had, but now you're going to be able to take that noise, filter it out to get what's important to you and your org or your business or your industry, and then compare that to what other people are doing so you can be safe and take action. I think that's where it's going.
Got it. Thanks, Benjamin. I think we can squeeze in one more question before we hit the top of the hour here. You showed us a lot. What do we need to have in place to protect our organization, employees, and customers? Like if we wanted to be faster or better at our jobs.
Well, when you need to have an understanding of what you have, and that's your attack surface. So picture the internet. We have the map of the internet. RiskIQ can give you the map of what you have and the map of what you rely upon to do your business. So there might be a third party that does your payment card processing that you rely upon because you're doing WUPRA, for example, or customer engagement. Those people can have a problem that affect you and your business. So you need to have an understanding of what's there and how you relate to the world outside of your organization, because we no longer live just in our own four walls. Those walls have been shattered this year. So you need to have that aspect of what you have. And then you have to have things in place that are monitoring what you have to see if changes occur. So like we have JavaScript threats protection, where we look at the JavaScript and we monitor your sites, and if something changes, we can alert you to say, somebody added a script, it's malicious or it's suspicious, or you need to take a look at it, whether it's on your site or a third party that you're using. So you need to have those things where you look at your mobile apps, anybody that's fringing on you, your social, your websites, and looking at those domain infringement, the phishing, the applications, the social. And because you have your own perspective, as we go out and crawl the internet, we know what looks like you, what acts like you, and then we're able to find those threats 1 to 4 days before they're active, so then you can take the appropriate action to block it and then do the takedown. I think that's where what organizations need to do is to be more proactive, have these integrations to close the gaps and have full visibility. I think that's what you need to do.
Awesome. Thanks, Benjamin. So we're right at time now. So, we'll follow up directly with those of you who asked questions we weren't able to get to live. You can always reach out to success@riskiq.net with any additional questions. Thank you to Benjamin for a great workshop today.
And one more thing I forgot to mention. So on December 3rd, we're going to have another workshop. But this is going to be a year in review where we're going to go back and look at an entire year of what happened with threats and where we think the world is going and what you might need to do. So come back on December 3rd. We're going to have the Hacker Valley podcast group co-host it with us, where we're going to be talking about threats and showing them in the product and what happened. And so I think it'll be a really good show. So come back December 3rd if you'd like to see where we're headed and what happened.
Perfect. Thanks, Benjamin. And finally, thank you all for attending today. Everyone, we appreciate the time and have a great rest of your day. Take care.
One more thing, Barrett, if you have a question that we didn't answer, we forgot to email us at success@riskiq.net. And for the people that did your volunteered, please in the chat put your email privately to myself or to Barrett, and we will send out that promo code to you. So Ganesh and Walter, please do that. Okay.
All right. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.
Sorry. I already got my promo code.
Okay, good. Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Walter. Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.